Is the United States pulling funding from Ukraine and losing support? No. But Zelensky was asked about that. And what was really interesting is not only did he answer it in Ukrainian to reporters, he took to X and wrote what looks to be 14 paragraphs talking about it. Because at this very moment, we're probably in one of the most crucial stages in peace talks, as the United States is getting ready to send peace talking, we'll just call them committees, to Ukraine and then Russia to discuss what could be happening. And you see, while on the surface it looks like talks are going on, but at this very moment, talks are technically not happening between Ukraine and Russia. Something that Zelensky spoke about just a day and a half ago. And with recent comments that Trump has made about Ukraine and rare materials and things, there's been a lot of interesting questions thrown out there. And so I wanted to go over what Zelensky said today and give a lot of context. Now, if you haven't read it yet, at the time of this recording, it's only been online for 45 minutes. You probably haven't heard half of this, and there's a lot in it. So if you could stay to the end, I will do my best to break it down so that you can understand it. Before we get started, do make sure you subscribe, you turn on notifications, you give this video a thumbs up. With TikTok, we don't know what's going to be happening in the future. We've got 60 days, essentially. It could be going away, especially because today, China pretty much said that we're willing just to pull the plug on the whole thing if we can't come to an agreement. So this is where you're going to find my videos. My shorts will be, those TikTok videos will be living there. And then I'll do longer form videos like this, including interviews with soldiers on the front lines, which should be coming soon. That being said, let's break down what happened here. Now, this was translated into English already for us. Zelensky's been really good at doing that. That way, more countries can understand what he's saying. He says here, and I will stop in between to add in some stuff. In response to journalists' questions in Kyiv, I emphasize that the U.S. support for Ukraine has not stopped or decreased. It continues. I am grateful for that. Right now, we're not discussing any new packages yet, but it's too early for that. However, we are already starting communications with the U.S. team. We know that right now a date has been set for whether it be Keith Kellogg and his team or other representatives to come to Ukraine to talk about different concessions and negotiations, some of which we already kind of have an idea what they could be. Zelensky had mentioned prior that he would like the 2014 borders, but it now looks like they could be the 2022 borders, talking about Crimea. So that's already something on the table. And then the whole thing with the rare earth materials. Ukraine is rich in a lot of different materials. Lithium, they've got uranium, and a lot of oil and such. And so Zelensky actually brought that up 6 months ago. And now Trump talked about it just a few days ago as though it was his plan, even though you and I both know whose plan it truly was. He continues, can we manage without the support? In the early days of the war, we had no choice. It was extremely difficult, and we could have lost the country. Thanks to our people, our army, and our partners, we endured. I don't want to imagine what would have happened if Ukraine had to face Russia without U.S. support. Tomorrow marks 6 months since the start of the Kursk operation, a critical step for our fight. At some point, when the war moves towards the diplomatic resolution, you will see just how important this operation was. Russia's conditions for ending the war will reveal its significance. So, essentially, if you remember, when they started that operation, they said we're going to use this as a bargaining chip. Because there's something over there that Russia desperately needs. And it's more than just territory. It's the fact that Ukraine had proven to the Russian people that your country does not care for you and will not protect you. We were able to not only walk into your country and take territory, 6 months later, we still have it. It's still in our possession. Not only that, Ukrainians just a few days ago took out a command post, taking out North Korean commanders and Russian commanders. On top of that, Ukraine is targeting oil refineries, oil depots, aviation bases, pipelines, and so much more, to the point to where the Russian people are saying, well, you guys are not supporting us or giving us any kind of air defense systems to protect our country. And those are questions that are being asked between the Russian people and the very pro-Russian military bloggers who recently said, and I mean just today, said the Russian governor here said that only debris caused this fire at this oil refinery. We're talking about the one in the Krasnodar area. And then a video was put online showcasing what looks to be a Ukrainian either drone or missile flying directly into it, hitting it spot on and exploding. And the Russians are going, you lied to us. You told us air defense systems knocked it down. And we have proof here that you lied to us. So now you got the Russian military bloggers starting to question everything the Russian military or the Russian government is saying. That is something that's psychological that Ukrainians are doing on top of the Kursk operation. So it's a lot bigger. Plus, it's a bargaining chip. He continues by saying, we are keeping control of the situation in the Kursk region. Russian losses are massive, far higher than they admit. Their North Korean mercenaries are already running. We have struck key Russian command posts with long-range weapons. Thanks to our own production and our partner support, we have achieved serious results. It's been weeks since North Korean troops have been on the front line. Yeah. Why? Well, they brought, 12,000? 4,000 of which are either KIA or injured. And so they pulled back a lot of these people, though I need to add some reports do state they're still there, just not as many. At the same time, the Russian losses are insane. You bring up really the latest, I can actually bring up for you the latest from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. 844,000 Russian KIA/injured. 9,947 tanks, which Russia's actually running low on. They can't produce that many, and they can't go back into the field to get more. Artillery, 22,707, which, by the way, are failing. Armored vehicles, 20,721. And then you get to the bigger things. Aircraft, 369. Helicopters, 331. And ships, 28. Russia is losing a lot. He continues by saying, Russia will not push us out of Kursk anytime soon. Their forces are stuck like a magnet. They have over 60,000 troops on this front, and this stabilized the Kharkiv region. The enemy still strikes different areas. Zoom we saw just 2 days ago. Russian missile terrorists continue, but their ground forces are weaker. That's true. They haven't been able to really make any major pushes. They're taking little pieces here and there, but nothing insane. When discussing the hypothetical deployment of a partner contingent in Ukraine, the key questions is, are Europeans alone enough? No. Because this is not just about numbers. It's about shared responsibility and security guarantees. Such a move cannot happen without the United States. That would be a serious mistake and could be exactly what Russia wants, for Europeans to support Ukraine without U.S. involvement. That would give Russia an advantage politically and strategically. So let's break that down for a second here. There's been a lot of European leaders that pushed around the idea of hey, if the United States pulls out support from Ukraine, don't worry, we could do this. And they've said many of times that we could give them this weapon and do this and do this and do that. And realistically speaking, that could work, but it wouldn't be a long-lasting peace. It would probably last for a couple years until those countries either couldn't afford it or other things would happen. And so Zelensky knows that, and I'm sure down the line those leaders know it as well, but they need to kind of stay face when it comes to Donald Trump. He continues by saying, security guarantees must involve the United States as the most significant guarantor along Europe, including the EU and the UK. This is crucial. Only together, whether it's a contingent, weapons, naval presence, personnel, or air defenses, it must be a joint effort between the US and Europe. Once again, he's not wrong. The US has the strongest military in the entire world. And the second, if you actually count all the other smaller things that they do. Russia sits on the list of maybe fourth, with Ukraine being in the third position at this very moment. But to not really have the United States involved. You're removing large things such as NATO and the United States in general. That's a problem. You need them to support and essentially force Russia back from trying to ever invade again. He's not wrong. And he kind of says that here. Let's be honest. NATO is the cheaper option for everyone, but each country must decide how much security they need. Putin has made his intentions clear. He's not stopping this war. He'll keep pushing forward. He's already thinking about other countries. When Zelensky is talking about, up to this point, thinking about other countries, we already know that Russia's doing a lot on the hybrid front. That doesn't involve boots on the ground. We're talking about elections. What's going on in Georgia, putting a pro-Putin, pro-Russian government together and getting them elected. We've been seeing that in Romania and Slovakia, in other countries where Russia is doing everything possible for a hybrid war to put their pro-agenda people in power. But what Zelensky's talking about here is actual boots on the ground. And he explains that next by saying, Putin will provoke other nations. Poland or the Baltic states could be next. This is not just a rhetoric. By spring, summer, or fall, he will position forces in Belarus, some in Europe, and the U.S. may dismiss this as intimidation of Poland, Lithuania, and the Baltics. But you will see, he will do everything to drag them into this escalation. This is a bombshell report. The first time that we're hearing that Russia is getting ready to do this stuff. Remember, Ukraine's intelligence is impeccable. So if they're saying this, then it's happening. He continues by saying, will there be a full-scale invasion? I don't know. But one thing is certain. He will put Belarus deeper into the war. In my view, Belarus was already involved the moment they launched missiles at Ukraine. But their army and their people haven't fully entered the war yet. Putin wants that to change. When Russia started their invasion of Ukraine, Putin bullied Lukashenko to say, we're putting our men above you. We're putting them in your country so that they can go down into Ukraine. And the game plan was they were supposed to enter on 3 different fronts: Western Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine, and Central Ukraine. Luckily for my family, thank God, they didn't enter from the West. They moved those forces all the way over to where Chernobyl is because they weren't doing well in the capital. That being said, Zelensky's saying that Putin wants to put physical troops in there and he wants to get the Belarusian army involved, which we haven't really seen yet. And if they do, it's going to be a big problem. And now Zelensky ends with this. The only way to stop him is to act now. If you don't want to spend your entire budget on defense in the future, then spend what is needed today to strengthen security. Supporting Ukraine is part of your own defense. That's all from his speech. There was a lot to break down, but there's more that goes into this. Peace talks are clearly underway, and we know that Ukraine is doing everything possible to show the world that, look, we've got a lot to offer here. Besides the rare materials, with all that stuff, we also did a lot for you guys, and I don't think you understand the importance of that. You see, Ukraine, yes, they did get weapons from the United States and Europe, but prior to even 2014, who was the largest, pretty much, threat to the world? Russia. They boasted we had the largest military and all these things. Well, Ukraine just proved that A, the Russian military ain't nothing, and B, destroyed, I think it's a quarter of the Russian military. And guess what? The United States, no European country, had to put boots on the ground. Essentially, Ukraine said, give us the weapons, not your boys, and we'll take care of this problem for you. And they've been doing that. They've been fighting not only to keep Ukraine free and keep Russia away from them, but they were fighting for the world to tell Russia, you ain't doing this. This is not happening on our watch, and we're going to stop you from not only never doing this to Ukraine, but never doing it to any other country around the entire world ever again. Ever. And they did that. And they're still doing that. Ukrainian men are out there every single day. And I had an interview with a soldier just yesterday talking about these things, and he was literally fresh from the front lines that day. And in the interview, we're going back and forth, and I was saying, I don't think Ukrainian soldiers understand of the significance of what you're doing. You're doing more than just fighting for your mom, your dad, your country. You're fighting for the world. And you guys are going to become heroes in the history books of things and legends. And you know what he said to me? Obviously, every soldier I speak to, they don't look at themselves as a hero, even though they are. They're not all, once again, they're a hero in their country, but also a hero to the world. He says to me, there's a lot of great people who were teachers or maybe worked for, I don't know, a print shop that had the calling. Hey, I need to help my country. I need to get out there. I need to fight. I need to do it. And those men became the heroes who story maybe will never be told because maybe that one person, knew that this was the right thing to do and went out there and fought and lost their lives and did it in a heroic way that no one will ever know about it. And I said to him, that's the thing. I do all these interviews with people so that people will know about it. Stories about, you're going to hear stories about, the F-16 taking down 6 missiles. It's public stuff. But there are guys who, let's say they're in a battalion. They got cut off with them and they're pinned down. You know how many countless stories I've heard about men who looked at their guys and said, you guys go, let me stay back and take down these men for you. And unfortunately, most of the time, that guy doesn't make it out. That's a hero. And that's happening almost every day in Ukraine. Every single day. These guys are willing to put their lives on the line, stopping everything that they were doing to go fight, to make sure that their country and our world is better off than being controlled by the Russian oligarchy that we have to deal with, especially if you see the whole construct of what they do to the world. They're all heroes, every single one of them. And I think people forget these are just regular people out there doing what they need to do to make sure that Russia doesn't get what they want. They're heroes. And I think sometimes the world forgets about that. They forget about the human aspect of it all. That these are just average Joes out there doing the right thing because they have to. They need to. Because if not, the alternative is to be overran by Russia and be a part of the Russian world, and they don't want that. They don't want that. And maybe here in the United States, a lot of people don't understand what the Soviet lifestyle was like and what it currently is in Russia. It's not ideal. It's awful. And sure, you'll see some pretty pictures of, whether it be St. Augustine or St. Petersburg or, Moscow or Sochi and these other cities. And outside of that, it's nothing even near it. That's not a country anyone wants to be a part of, physically or even on paper or politically. It's awful. And Ukrainians every day are stopping Russia from expanding that into the world. And we need to give them more credit. That being said, I apologize for the long video. There was a lot to break down here. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, turn on notifications, give this video a thumbs up. I'm Joey. Stay safe. I'll see you later.